Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We are experiencing some turbulence. I'd appreciate it if you'd remain in your seats and keep your seat belts fastened until I turn off the fasten seatbelt sound. Thank you very much.
I'd like to begin with a short poem I wrote with my topic in mind. Mistakes. What are they? Little slips. Whoa, literal trips. Sorry about that. An error, but bad in every way. Isn't that what most feel and say? And yet, is it wise to be of them harsh and intolerant always? Do they never result in good that stays? Is it wise to be of them harsh and intolerant always, so as to make avoiding mistakes a craze? Before I came here to speak to you guys, I was talking to my friends about my topic for today, as in the importance of making mistakes. And I distinctly remember one of them saying, well, you know, I can't be surprised, that's your topic. I asked him, well, why is that? I'm like, knowing the amount of mistakes you make, you're a professional in the field. Yeah, we're friends. So the discussion concerning the importance of mistakes, in particular the importance of being allowed to make mistakes, is without a doubt one of the most important discussions in the world today, as it is a discussion with both a historical background and a modern-day significance. As in, you find that some of the world's greatest inventions, some of absolutely unimaginable importance, are in fact the result of a mistake, an error, a slip. Yet it is not uncommon for us to see mistakes being deemed intolerable to the extent that it begins to have a severe detrimental effect on the human mind, yes? Therefore, I feel it absolutely necessary for us to dissect this topic in considerable depth in the following stages. Number one, how does one benefit from making mistakes? Since mistakes can only mean bad, right? Number two, what are some of the world's greatest inventions that have resulted due to a mistake or mistakes? Number three, is making mistakes really a drawback for us, or is there more to it? Number four, why is it that some of us are in a way afraid of making mistakes? And number five, what can excessive amounts of such fear eventually lead to? Now, about 1,200 years before this man, René Descartes said this line, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. This man, St. Augustine, sat down and wrote, Fallor ergo sum, I err, therefore I am. One thing we must all realize, and please understand this point very carefully, is that it is not all wrong to make mistakes, since it is mistakes, among other things, that shape who we are and our decisions as human beings. And it is in fact mistakes that are very, very useful to us as human beings. Allow me to elaborate. So, mistakes are often the grounds for a lot of innovation. And this man, St. Augustine, as I said, somehow realized this. And so let's take an example from real life of one of the world's biggest innovations that has resulted due to a chain of mistakes constantly being corrected. The atomic theory, or the atom, that started when this man, an ancient Greek philosopher on the left, Democritus, was once sitting cutting a piece of cheese, and he had the realization, when the piece got really, really tiny, that eventually you end up with an uncuttable particle, and he named that uncuttable particle atomos. Now, because he was less famous, and this man, Aristotle, was more famous, he said, this idiot has no idea what he's talking about, and so for thousands of years, the existence of atoms was mistakenly disbelieved, until this man, John Dalton, came in, experimented, and said, well, hang on, Democritus was right, Aristotle made a mistake, he was wrong. And so the first atomic model, the bowling ball model, came to be. Next came J.J. Thomson, a few years later, found a few mistakes in the bowling ball model, corrected them using his experiments, and the plum pudding model came to be. Then came Ernest Rutherford, who found empty space between the small particles in the plum pudding model, and made his electron orbital model, correcting J.J. Thomson's mistakes. Then came Niels Bohr, who, upon further experimentation, improved that model, making the energy level model. And finally came Werner Heisenberg and Erwin Schrödinger, making today's model, which in my opinion just hasn't had its mistakes identified yet. So you see how constant progression has occurred because mistakes were constantly being corrected? And this is the point that I want you all to understand very carefully, so please understand this and listen to me. For us, making mistakes is not a drawback. Rather, it is an ability within each and every one of us for which we must be thankful. There's an old saying, a proverb in Hindi, "Insan galtiyon ka putla hai," which means the human is like a statue, sculpted by mistakes. And the more time you spend sculpting a statue, the more effort you put into it, the finer it becomes. And so if we were to change our perception of mistakes from negative to positive, learn from them, then we'd be able to sculpt ourselves better, and we'd become better people. And the more mistakes we learn from, believe you me, there will be nothing to stop us from achieving our goals and accomplishing great feats, much like the atomic theory. Just try it. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb. Well, what you might not have heard of is that it took him 2,000 attempts on his initial design of constantly correcting it again and again and again, because he made so many mistakes, until eventually he made an invention, the light bulb, without which I can say absolutely confidently none of us could do today. And so his cohorts asked him, "Thomas, why did you spend so much time working on one project? Are you crazy? Why didn't you just give up? There was so much more to do." This was his response: "I never failed once. It was just a 2,000-step process that led to the goal." Now, if he'd not learned from his mistakes, and if he'd given up, we'd be in darkness. So thank you, Mr. Edison, for lighting up our world. Now, it's not just Thomas Edison and his light bulb that are worth noting. There are many inventions today that, when you realize were in fact the result of mistakes, would quite possibly make you go, "What, are you serious? No way." And I'm not exaggerating. That's certainly how I reacted when I saw this list. So let's start off with Konstantin Thalberg, who made saccharin, which is an artificial sweetener. Now, saccharin was created when Mr. Thalberg, who was experimenting in Johns Hopkins University, accidentally forgot to wash his hands before he had lunch. I mean, it's one thing to make an experimental error resulting in a product, but forgetting to wash hands resulting in a product that we use every single day and consume so much, mind blown. I just could not believe myself. And so, moving on, then we have Teflon. Now, Teflon was created by Roy Plunkett, who was a DuPont chemist, and Teflon came to be when he froze a gas, tetrafluoroethylene, in a pile of cans. And when he came back the next day to experiment on them, he noticed that the gas had gone, frozen up inside the cans. The material that had resulted was a black, non-stick, corrosion-resistant material that we know today as the mighty Teflon. And finally, perhaps the most important of all of these inventions, one that has helped save many lives today, the cardiac pacemaker. Well, this one's ridiculous. This was created when this man, a chemist named Wilson Greatback, was working on this machine to help monitor people's heart rates when he accidentally inserted the wrong resistor into the circuit. Now, the effect on the internal electronics was adverse, and the cardiac pacemaker came to be. Now that we've seen some of the many great inventions that resulted due to constant making of mistakes, let us ask ourselves, why is it that some of us are in a way afraid of making mistakes? Well, many factors contribute to such a fear, such an invocation of a fear of making mistakes within each and every one of us. Parental and peer pressure are often among the leading causes, as well as excessive overcompetitiveness. You know, you always want to be right if you're competing with a large group of people. If you're menacing, you don't want to go wrong anywhere. And then finally, just the simple fear of being laughed at or ridiculed for your mistakes could cause a fear of making them. And what this does in a lot of people, and I say this from personal experience a few years ago, is that it causes them to become perfectionists. What is perfectionism? Now, it's one thing to pay attention to detail and work very, very closely on a single task. But perfectionism, it's being obsessed with getting a task perfect, which entails spending hours and hours and hours on one thing until it is absolutely perfect beyond most people's imaginations. Now, you might be thinking, well, so what? Okay, a person is perfectionistic. He spends a lot of time working on a project. That's good, it's good for him. Well, just for you all, I've made a little flow chart. So, the fear of making mistakes, which leads to perfectionism, which leads to a lot of wastage of time, constant studying, working, perfect. No. Which leads, as you can imagine, to heightened inefficiency, which could lead then to heavy mental stress, which, if it continues for long enough, could lead to loss of appetite, malnutrition, and forms of physical illness. And once again, I speak from personal experience. Perfectionism does happen. It is real. And so, just to end, another poem from my side. So, here I stand today, having said all that I had to say. And so I preach, and so I entreat that you treat all that I have preached today when you return to your homes with care and consideration. Listen to me again on YouTube. Ask if at all you need any reiteration. I spoke here today not to achieve your appreciation, no, but because I wanted each and every one of you to know that mistakes help us and the world grow. So go on out there, make mistakes, learn from them, and sculpt yourselves to be the best you can ever be. Thank you.